An hour and 15 minutes.
Well, we'll see. Good morning. This is Senate Transportation, Thursday, January 11th. We are going to hear from more staff at the Agency of Transportation today. Patrick Murphy will talk to us about electric vehicles. Take it away, Patrick. You know everybody here.
Yep, great, thank you. For the record, Patrick Murphy, Sustainability Innovations Project Manager for Vermont Agency of Transportation. Happy to be back here and
We're glad you're happy to be back here.
Great. That feels good. So I'll try and run through these slides fairly quickly so we can get over to Dave Roberts, the star second baseman for the Sox. And I don't think I need to tell you to feel free to ask questions if they occur to you as we go.
Yes, and we don't always follow the script either. We know that.
So
This is upside down.
Yeah, it's harder to follow upside
That
down.
steps are upside down. This is all this, the back pages are all upside down. Is that
I think it's the way it was
copy? Huh.
I'll try to give it
But
to you right side
It's
up.
all right up here, so
Yeah.
we don't even need to look at it.
mine's right side up.
So-
I just get you to. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So we'll start just kind of with where we want to be. These goals, these targets come from the Climate Action Plan and come out of requirements in the Global Warming Solutions Act. So you've seen these numbers before, 27,000 plug-in electric vehicles by 2025 total, and 126,000.
But the 17% of sales, so it's 27,000 total, but for that year, 17% of sales would also.
Roughly equates to that.
Oh, it does. So that's not the total number of EVs. It's just the
No.
number of sales that year.
This would be 27,000 would be the total number of registered vehicles.
That's different than sales then.
Yeah, and so this 17% of sales is based on the modeling done by the Agency of Natural Resources.
To get to that number, we'd have to
It's
do
basically
17%
by 2025, 17% of sales would,
annually.
To get us to the
Yes.
27,000 target
that's
Are
right.
we still under 10%?
Right now, we're just at about 10%.
of sales.
Dave has some of those numbers, yeah, of new vehicle sales.
Okay.
So, and we'll focus on these items within the Climate Action Plan today. Basically the incentive programs and EV charging.
And just to remind us, Patrick, that when we say these goals, electric vehicles includes plug-in hybrids,
That's correct.
any plug-in vehicle.
Right, yeah. So we're at about, as of the third quarter of last year, about 11,000 vehicles, so maybe about 12,000 by this point, or close to it anyhow. So we've got a ways to go, but we're still on the, kind of curve that we need to be to get very close, at least in 2025. This ranking of states came out in November of 2023, looking at a number of climate action and equity measures. And the state of Vermont was ranked pretty highly, third in the nation for a number of these indicators. But the focus of today, vehicle electrification, in that sort of category, we've led the country.
I'm sorry, who led the country?
Vermont,
Oh, we led the country?
in vehicle electrification category.
It's like as a percentage.
So I'll give a rundown of kind of what we've done since we last spoke with you in the last session. A number of changes were approved, authorized by you all to be able to have some more flexibility with our incentive programs to sort of optimize them for EV adoption.
Can I interrupt?
Go ahead.
On, I think it's on your third slide.
Mhm.
there you have boxes around some of the pathway. I don't know if these were recommendations from the climate action plan.
Those are directly from the climate action plan recommendations,
And the ones that are within a box,
or what we're gonna focus on today.
this,
Oh, the very beginning?
well, not the very, it's number slide 3. I just wondered
Oh,
if the box ones are like the ones we're doing and then the other ones were like,
The ones we're focusing on just in this presentation today.
oh, but
Yeah.
it's not that this AOT is
No.
discounted those other options.
That's right.
Thank you.
Sure. So, with all the programs we changed, with the exception of Mileage Smart, we changed income guidelines to include more households and include a head of household category, which is a single person with dependents. We also asked for the authority to increase incentive amounts up to $6,000 for a new PV program, and to increase the base MSRP caps.
is it too early to tell what the impact has been? Obviously,
No, not too early.
are we seeing an impact? from
We
these?
are, yeah. I've got a couple slides on that. In just a bit.
Can you remind me? What AEV?
All electric vehicles,
Oh.
battery electric vehicles. So, what we did with the authority that you gave us, since the summer, in late July, we enacted the changes to the programs, which increased those income thresholds for households. It also increased the incentive amount. We only looked at the fully electric vehicles, increasing that incentive amount for the lowest income bracket. So just raising that from 4,000 to 5,000. And then we increased the base MSRP cap to 50,000 initially. And then for model year 2024, as new vehicle models came out, we increased it again to 52,500 to make sure we were capturing as many vehicles as possible.
And can you remind us where the money comes from?
Which money comes from?
The money for these?
For the new PV.
Yeah.
And so that was through Act 55.
Also just VTrans money, or was it?
It was
federal money?
general funds. So it was $12 million in 2022 for the new PV program, $3 million for Mileage Smart, $3 million for Replace Your Ride, and then just 50,000 for the e-bike program.
So we're still spending that down.
We're still spending that down, and then the last incentive program there, Electrify Your Fleet. The last year we created out of some of that existing appropriation for Replace Your Ride, we created this program. And the same with we continued the e-bike program through money that wasn't really being used well in the Replace Your Ride program at the time. So we enacted those changes for the incentive program for new PVs, for Mileage Smart. There weren't many changes except that all the programs, or the main 3 PVs, Mileage Smart and Replace Your Ride, were codified in statute this past year. But we did implement a price cap for the used vehicles because we saw just a few outliers that we weren't really comfortable with. Yeah. So that I think also creates a little more incentives for people lower within that 80% median income guideline for the Mileage Smart program. And then we also worked with Capstone Community Action Agency on creating some more affordability within the program. So it's not 5,000 is an up to number in statute, which allows us to there's no percentage of the price in statute. It's something that the program administrator chose to do, to limit it to 25% of the total vehicle price. And there are circumstances where it would be more helpful for people on the lower end of the income bracket to be able to have the full 5,000 apply, even if it were towards, say, like a $10,000 vehicle. And so we're working with them to implement that change where the 5,000 would become automatic if you met the requirements of you were able to show participation and basically the food stamp program, the WIC
Who's
program,
operating and replace your ride?
Capstone.
This is Capstone.
Sure, jump in, Dave. Yeah.
Dave Roberts, BIC for the record. Capstone is operating Mileage Mart. You
Right.
asked about Replace Your Ride.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Dave. Replace Your Ride is being operated by Center for Sustainable Energy. So they have
Where you can buy which is, you can replace it with an e-bike, or you're just replacing you're
The
just
vehicle.
taking a vehicle off the road.
That's right. So, but we have seen that in the last few months has also helped the Mileage Smart program because it deepens that affordability of replacing with even a used vehicle. So it can be stacked with the Mileage Smart program, can be stacked with the new EV program. And that I think is helping drive some increases for those programs too.
So you could stack like all electric vehicle 5,000 on the 5,000 with Replace Your Ride.
Mm-hmm. Dave has a great slide that shows, how that really results in affordability for like a Chevy Bolt, bringing the price down from whatever it is, 28,000, all the way down to anywhere between 5,000, 6,000, 10,000. So depending on where your service area is and what other and whether you're able to take advantage of those utility programs. So the Replace Your Ride program hadn't been doing well. We talked about the structural issues with it, having a $3,000 incentive when at the same time we launched the program, we had very high used vehicle prices. So people were able to trade in their vehicles for $4,000, $3,500 and not need that Replace Your Ride incentive to be able to get the full benefit. So so this change to $5,000 has helped, and we can talk a bit more about that.
Could you just Replace Your Ride? It's hard to keep this all straight and come back to it for a while. What do we allow the replacements to be?
So it can be a new plug-in electric vehicle, a used plug-in electric vehicle. It could be
An e-bike.
an e-bike. It could be a regular bike. It could be bike safety equipment. It could be a mix of shared mobility services. When public transit starts charging in March, that will be an eligible expense. There's van pooling through the state that we're working to include in that as well. So
Mileage Smart doesn't have to be an EV, it just has to have an MPG over certain.
over 40 miles per gallon. And we have some good progress on that as well. There are more people purchasing all electric vehicles as a percentage of the overall. So does that answer your question then? Okay. And then the e-bike incentive program, we relaunched that last June as a voucher-based system. So people were issued prepaid mobility cards. They just function as a Visa or MasterCard.
It has to be an e-bike. It can't be like a scooter or anything like that.
No, we've got the definitions of e-bike, and then last year also was added the definition of a electric cargo bike and also an adaptive e-bike.
The vouchers only for certain retailers or is any?
And so it's for participating retailers, and that's, so last year there was a desire on the part of the legislature to direct more of the funding to local businesses. The first round we had 79% of the funding go to online retailers, mostly out of state. And then this is basically, kept all the funding within the state. So it's a big shift. And then lastly, electrify your fleet program. The idea behind this was to be able to start exposing more people to the technology generally in their work, and get vehicles out and about for others to see, and then also to develop this used vehicle market. Fleet vehicles tend to turn over more quickly than a personal vehicle, as Senator Kitchell has talked about.
I still have my 2010 Honda,
So there you go. And
but I'm a carpool one too, so.
You're keeping that off of the used car market? You could have.
I've used it. To the point where I'm not sure it'll pass inspection again.
So we're hoping that after a few years, when those vehicles cycle out that have been incentivized, when they cycle out, that then they become much more affordable options for people through the MileageSmart program. And we've made that direct link in the program guidelines that encourage those that are participating to basically give participating MileageSmart dealerships the right of first refusal, that they would sell to those first, look to sell to those first rather than out of state. So we launched that program in November, which provides $2,500 for municipalities, nonprofit organizations, businesses, and then also provides the up to $5,000 for the two shared mobility, nonprofit shared mobility organizations, basically Car Share Vermont and Community Rides.
And they can do as many as, there's no cap on the number.
We did put a cap on the number for organizations, no more than 20 altogether, and for the those two organizations, no more than 5 for that higher incentive.
Okay. And VIC runs that program?
And this program is just being run out of the agency.
Okay.
We decided, because of the capacity of our main programs administrator, Center for Sustainable Energy, that it was better done in-house and that we could launch it in a more timely way.
And that's basically you, or?
No, it's myself, and then we have 2 other team members, Ari Latanzi and Hillary Dillross, who've been great in getting it set up. So that's the rundown of what we've done with those language changes from last year. The other thing was that with the flexibility that we had, and Senator Kitchell has seen this earlier in the fall, with the flexibility that we had been given, we were able to kind of quickly pivot in response to the flood, really the floods of the summer, and offer some higher incentives to get people who had their vehicles damaged in the flood to transition to electric. The more that we can do that, the better we're staying ahead of this, fleet turnover rate, which is really one of the main barriers to getting towards our goals. So,
do you have a slide on how many are?
I don't have a slide on how many. I did at the last at the JTalk meeting, but I can get that.
Roughly, was it?
It weren't a lot of people that took advantage of it. I think there might have been 20 or so applications for the used vehicle program. I'm not sure how many actually have followed through and made that purchase, but I know that there have been purchases that were incentivized, and we'll keep that open for the time being. So it was because of those changes that that you all had approved last year that we were able to do that. So this is a historical look at the incentive amounts on a monthly basis that we've paid out through the new PV program, and you can see a significant spike that I think can be directly attributed to the changes.
So green is everything, yellow is,
So yes,
The lower
I'll just run through the coding of it. The green is all electric vehicles going to households with low incomes. The yellow is all electric vehicles going to the moderate income households. Blue is the plug-in hybrids going to low income, and then the purple is the plug-in hybrids going to moderate income. So you can see that the plug-in hybrids are, increasingly just a small share of the program, and that the amount of funding going to households with lower incomes is steadily increasing because of those changes. This gives you a sense to the right of where that funding is going across the state. Just over $6.25 million remains in that initial $12 million. And from August until now, the number of applications has basically tripled the incentive issued on a monthly basis and the amount of money going out the door, which is a good thing, but also, obviously creates some funding gaps quicker than we expected. But those changes did result in 88% of the funding going to fully electric vehicles, so working away more quickly at our climate goals, and then 70% of the funding going to households with lower incomes.
and are you tracking, or you do the number of people that lease an electric vehicle that stay with an electric vehicle after the lease is over? We haven't had enough time to
We have not.
Usually 3 years.
So the leases are, generally for a longer period of time, but we require that the leases be for 24 months at least.
Yeah.
We're working with, potentially working with University of Vermont with some data sets that they have, and hope to get a better understanding of all the programs and how incentives change household vehicle ownership and VMT patterns, and that would give us a better idea of how long these incentivized vehicles are staying within the household, and,
Right.
Yeah.
Or within Vermont.
and even within Vermont, yeah. So
So Essex, there's no color there, so that's,
Or is there no vehicles or only one vehicle?
it's not that there's, white is still a color, but it's just that there's very few number of vehicles that have been incentivized there, and it's, obviously the population is very low there, but there's also, the issues around infrastructure, and that's what we're working away at.
These are only the incentivized ones, so like,
Yes,
if Russ had bought 4 cars, they wouldn't have shown up here.
he's not in Essex County though, he's a resident. He represents it.
Right, he's never in Orleans.
Oh, that's because they're all high income, you see, and they're just buying them.
And all the Essex people,
Yeah.
that's
Never heard that from Essex County.
no. So, it is something that we're going to be working on in terms of outreach and dealer participation, and that's just an ongoing effort that has to happen to get more people aware of the programs. And I think it also has probably been a function of, initially at least, of what vehicle miles were available, and that's obviously shifted. Dave has a number of slides on that.
And there's not a
So-
lot of dealerships up there, is there?
I was just trying to think as you were
Island
saying
Pond,
that.
Brighton, is that
Yeah.
garage still there?
Yeah, used one,
Oh,
yeah.
it's not you.
No, it's not a Chevy anymore. They lost that.
So there's, no, it's too small.
Yeah,
Just used dealers.
I can think of Island Pond and that's about it.
Canaan is nothing.
No,
Island Pond doesn't, just has used cars then,
yeah,
Brighton garage.
yeah. You have to go across the river. Yeah, and I don't even know where the closest one would be there. Probably, no, there's one.
Colebrook?
Colebrook, I think there's one in Colebrook. There's a Chevy dealer in Colebrook.
Eddie Nash. You
We
better,
got one used dealership, we got to work with them.
Well, yes, that's definitely easier for outreach purposes.
Right.
So since August, we have seen that, it's for the first time shifted to the majority of, vehicles incentivized have been, through lease deals. And that's probably a function of the way the federal tax credits have been structured, based on battery components and critical minerals. The list of eligible vehicles has, been narrowed significantly, just as of a few days ago. And so there are fewer vehicles that can actually get that full $7,500 tax credit, or even the half, the
some people
$3,750.
don't have, I guess probably the incentive payment works for them. They just don't have the cash to pay.
The incentive lowers the lease payment.
So that I think it can work in both ways, that you can have it lower the lease payment, or you can use the incentive at the point of sale as basically your cash
If you're buying, or just as you pay part of the lease.
for leasing, yeah.
Which will lower the.
Miles Smart, they will apply their point of sale, a rebate, incentive, as, basically the down
Put the
payment.
money down, yeah.
Yes.
For a while there were a lot of leased, like both times we leased a Bolt, we had no money down. It's just that Chevy was making those deals.
Mhm.
So if those deals are gone, yeah, you would need this money to do the money down.
How do you find the dealer participation is? I mean, are the dealers eager?
I think, we've seen, an increase in the number of dealerships, in part because there have just been more vehicle models and more eligible, technically eligible models. So dealerships are using that leasing structure to pass through the federal tax credit. So,
Just being in that business for 20 years, I just know that they have to be vested into this. They have to, if they see it as a viable source of income for them, or to, I'd like to think that it's more that they want to help their clients. But I think it probably gets down to more of an income source for them.
sure.
I think they know it's a reliable relationship. I think that you can see an uptick in that. Maybe it is. I don't know that it is, or
I mean, we have, fair number of dealerships who are participating and benefiting from the program for sure. Dave has some slides as well, about the work that Efficiency Vermont has done with dealerships to support them in making the transition. And there are, some challenges that come with that, with particular automakers that have placed requirements on the dealerships, in terms of EV charging and others, but we have seen good participation among Vermont dealerships, and they certainly are a critical part to the program. To be able to pass those through at the point of sale really makes it more affordable for people.
A lot of the percent of people who lease new vehicles, it's growing, isn't it? Is it because you don't have the,
I think where it is, when I was in that business, everybody would ask me, okay, well, what's better?
yeah,
And it really gets down to where the manufacturers are at. I mean, if they all of a sudden have too many of these vehicles and they need to get those out on the market, they'll put incentives on that part. Or if they, so it really is where it's at with a dealership. what's the,
But from the customers, it's cheaper
sometimes it's,
overall.
sometimes it's cheaper to lease, sometimes it isn't. I lease, the vehicle that I have, and even though I put on 3 times as much miles as I'm supposed to have, I know how that business works, and, I lease a, let's put it out there on the open wide air web, but I lease a $50,000 Jeep Grand Cherokee for $555 a month. Now I'm putting on 3 times the amount of mileage, and at the end of the day, I'm responsible for those mileage. If I just turned it back in, and I'd have to write a pretty big check for those mileage, but knowing that they're, still at this market, there's not a lot of decent used vehicles, even with high mileage, I'm able to negotiate my way out of it. But it really does get down, it gets down to what the dealer has for inventory, what they have for backlog, what's selling, what's the residual value. There's times where it's cheaper to buy. But it's vehicle
The cheapest
driven.
way to buy would be just have the money to pay it.
Yeah, or finance it. Sometimes there's huge incentives that we're gonna give these incentives on leasing, but we're not gonna do it on purchasing. And sometimes they'll say, okay, well, we're gonna give these big incentives on purchasing and not leasing. So it really gets down to supply and demand and residual value of vehicle.
And with these is the federal tax credit that you could get through leasing but can't get through buying, which is the same kind of thing.
Yeah, because there's an income test. So
Also the federal.
if you buy versus lease.
Right, yeah, if you don't have the tax liability, then you don't use it all, but some of the vehicles don't meet the new federal requirements to get it on.
I think
on purchase, but there's kind of a loophole of getting it through the.
Yeah, so there's the sort of income filing tax credit program, which is now available if dealerships sign up to it at the point of sale. So people don't necessarily now need to have the tax liability to take advantage of the full credit. It's just that the list of vehicles is narrowed. But also in the Inflation Reduction Act, they passed a clean commercial vehicle tax credit, which manufacturers are using as they're basically categorizing it as a commercial vehicle, and then claiming those credits and passing it through to the customer. And through a loophole there's no battery component or mineral requirements, and they're able to capture that full $7,500. So that's why we've seen this trend towards a majority, 57% now are being incentivized as leases.
Okay.
So based on this funding projection, we have enough basically to get through the end of this calendar year. And then we'll have to think about what other funding source we'll come up with.
Bad timing.
Oh my God. Nothing, we're scraping the barrel.
So there
Unless
is,
you're putting something in your 25 budget, and you aren't supposed to
I
say.
can't speak to that.
I know.
But there are federal programs
Yeah.
that might support this. So this is, Mileage Smart is also trending in a positive direction in terms of the monthly number of deals that are being completed. And again, it's a positive and then also a funding
Does it
question.
have to be hybrid? Can it be just a gas electric car but still get over 40 miles per gallon? Has to be hybrid.
I believe that we've written it into the program guidelines as a conventional hybrid of 40 miles per gallon.
So if it's just like a tiny car that gets over 40, doesn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there are that many models that
Yeah.
would be able to do that. I mean, there's definitely kind of the ICE vehicles that are increasing in efficiency, but I think they tend to be, low 30s, mid 30s. I'm not sure that there are any that exceed 40.
Over 40.
We'll find out if somebody applies for it. But so there's just over 900,000 left in this program, which includes the allowance for administrative costs. So we're projecting this to run out of funding probably May or June,
Fiscal year.
or June of this year. And
Okay.
so we talked a bit about this in the House yesterday, and you know, where we might pull from. Replace Your Ride is a program that you all had transferred out of last year. That might be a way to bridge us to something else. Yeah.
Is there any of these programs, and as Senator Kitchell has pointed out, this year and last year, there's so many of them that they are hard to keep straight, and I will admit that. Are there any of them that you think need adjusting to get them performing better?
So we did, and we took the, you know, flexibility you all gave us.
So that's what
adjusted them.
you have.
Yeah, adjusted it in late July, and that's what we're seeing the results from that. We'll probably make another adjustment using that authority. Probably I would say before March, or March 1, to give the dealers enough time to account for changes, but to try and help extend out that program fund a little bit, and to really focus on what's most cost effective.
And so, and Replace Your Ride still has 2.9 million? That would be in your next slide?
So we're,
I guess not that.
not just yet.
You're getting ahead.
The scatter plot, there wasn't a lot of talk about.
So,
No,
this-
it's like a migraine.
this is just to show you, what we had looked at in terms of making sure that there was some control
Purchase
over.
price, wait, almost 60,000?
Yes, so that's why I'm showing you this slide. So we implemented
Is that what triggered
a
your,
$40,000 price cap. There were,
one was almost 60, one is probably 52,
so it's, people
50.
met the income requirement, but clearly had some assets to be able to make a purchase of that nature. And then there were, a handful of vehicles either right at that 50,000 mark or just below.
Well, what about the person has no income? Just,
Well, this is,
Well, this
this
is-
is the price.
There's no
Oh,
accident
yeah,
that shows
sorry,
income,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, somebody bought a car for $1,000.
yeah, that's what I mean. Looks like somebody got,
Got a good deal.
Okay.
Maybe they bought a 2010 Honda.
looks like the purchase price was less than the incentive. So
Well,
that
so in those circumstances, it's capped at
purchase price,
25% of the purchase price.
that's a deal. I wonder what they got.
So, and for the federal tax, there is a federal tax credit program that again is available now at the point of sale.
And there should be a used car tax credit.
And so, but that price cap is 25,000. So you can,
$25,000. And just the credit, it's less than the 7,500, right, for used cars?
yes, it's capped at 4,000 or 30%.
So you
Of the
moved
purchase
it down to
price.
40, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
Which really dealt with the outliers.
It captured the majority of vehicles that were incentivized, but eliminated the ones that didn't seem reasonable.
And those are fairly expensive vehicles.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, everything's, cars are pretty expensive.
Cars generally are
But it
expensive.
shows that there's certainly availability at the 40,000 or below.
So that's why we felt comfortable in doing it. Some of these outliers might be based around larger households that needed a larger vehicle and necessarily cost a bit more. But we did feel pretty comfortable in coming to that $40,000 cap. So, skipping ahead to Replace Your Ride, this does not capture the December numbers, but I've got some data on the next slide. So this 2.9 million is actually, a lot less now, not a lot less, but,
This is is this a
Now,
public facing dashboard or is this an
Yes.
internal day?
yeah, and I think that was just updated. I didn't have the update before I made these slides, but
Where's the dashboard on the website, on the Reflector, right,
It's-
on your website?
under, yeah, it's Drive Electric Vermont, and it's under the state incentive page.
Clean
Fastest way to
mobility.
get there is to go to the bottom of the Drive Electric homepage, there's a reports and resources link. And then it'll show up as like the second item. There are a couple of, their dashboards for each of the CSE administered programs.
And the clean mobility card,
So
explain who
yeah.
issues that and
so if someone were to take advantage of the pathway that is not replacing a car with a car,
the public transit.
but, you know, having a mix of different mobility services, public transit, bikes and what have you, then they would be issued that prepaid mobility card. And that could be applied to the participating businesses. So on the back end, it can only be spent at those particular businesses that we have agreements with. And then that also gives us a window into some of the data in how the money is spent over time. So this gives a look at where the geographic spending has been. A key point here is that over the last 2 months, the expenditures have been more than the first 13 months of the program. So I think we are seeing now that change that was made from 3,000 to 5,000, and even the change that allowed moderate income households to benefit from $2,500 has been working well.
So to scrap the vehicle, it has to be 10 years older or just 2013? I'm assuming it's like a
It has to be
rolling 10 year.
10 years old or older. And so it's, you know,
And the program
we're in
started-
2024, so any
Yeah.
model year 2014 or
And did the program start in 22?
yes, November of 22, I think. Or actually, the first phase of the program started in September of 22, and then this clean mobility card option was made available in November of 2022. So that program is picking up $260,000 in the past 2 months, 58 incentives, and it remains to be seen whether that is a trend or if that's just kind of a blip at the end of the year. We'll have to see. The e-bike incentive program, some of the changes we made, directed funds exclusively to households with lower incomes to deal with that question around rebate essentiality. Folks who were in the moderate income group of the first round of the e-bike program were reporting that the incentive, 65% of that group, that the incentive wasn't really making a difference, that they would have purchased the e-bike regardless. So we made that change to direct more of the funding to households with lower incomes, and also hope that meant that the transportation needs were being met. So it wasn't just a vehicle to go out on the trails recreationally, that it was going to be for everyday use.
And how do you do that certification? Do they make,
Well, I mean, it's an honor system. People are
self-certify, right?
attesting to the fact that they need this for transportation needs, and that doesn't mean that they won't take it out also on the trails, and that public
No,
health
but
isn't a
I mean,
need.
sort of like a self-declaration.
Yeah, and it's just to kind of signal this is what the funding is intended for.
And the average is 330 on the dashboard, but up there it's 544.
Yeah, so
And
there's
is that, what's the max? Is that percentage? or?
So one of the other changes that we made was that we were incentivizing electric cargo bikes
Yeah.
and adaptive e-bikes, and we raised the incentive amount to $800 for those.
Or a percentage? No percentage, yeah.
No, there's no percentage cap because there are no available bikes in those categories for
That would,
anywhere
but
near.
is there a percentage cap on the other e-bike?
No, because that is a lower amount, it's a $400, and there's no. So we also put in place,
What about so you're saying there's no electric bikes that would be under $600
not that could be incentivized through this program,
because
we have a couple things in place. One, it's based on participating bike shops now instead of the online retailers.
Costco hasn't signed up.
Costco is not signed up.
Participating.
It also has some, warranty requirements.
Right.
And then we've also, for the fleet incentive program, which allows for the e-bike as an option, we put in place a requirement that the manufacturer be voluntarily participating in a battery recycling program, which further limits the number of participating or eligible bikes.
And the restriction that we put on, I think that we put on last year about having the bikes certified, did that have any impact?
So we followed the California program and what they did, and they had an extensive public process, over a years long process to come to, and a lot of debate back and forth on it. And at the time, I think they ultimately decided just to go with a warranty provision to exclude some of those that didn't have any warranty at all, because there weren't enough models that had kind of had their bikes certified in this way. I think, a future iteration of the program were to be funded would have to probably evolve to catch up with whatever's going on with UL certification or the Euro PASTI, whatever.
Right, yeah. Right, okay.
The EN certification. So, but we are thinking that we will apply this, what we did for the Electrify Fleet program with the battery recycling, that we would apply that requirement to this program. And there are about, it says $37,900, it's about $36,000 left.
But we had enough flexibility in the language, because I think, remember, we did reference that European, because we had an umlaut.
Yeah, it was
there.
we did, and it's still in there,
Okay.
but it was a, either or situation, yeah, so.
I remember we had a lot of discussion.
About the umlaut?
Well, that, and also I think about the pricing and so forth.
Yeah.
So,
I think we opted, you're saying, did we have a cap or whatever? I think we decided for the reasons you said, and that
the percentage cap, because the way it's
it
structured
adds
is a
complexity and,
voucher system, people are being approved ahead of time. So you don't necessarily know what the purchase price is. And what this allows is someone to come with a card that's just basically used as you swipe like a regular credit card. And then the consumer gets their money immediately and the bike shop gets their money immediately. And that just, seemed to work better for both parties. And then it directed more of the funding to local businesses, obviously, and it provided more accessibility to the program. So, cargo bikes were then able to be subsidized at a higher rate because of the higher greenhouse gas emission reduction potential, and then the adaptive e-bikes. I think there were.
Who would use a cargo bike? What kind of business?
Well, in this case, it's just meant for a household, personal household,
So it
but
would be
you'd get,
groceries and.
Yeah, or you could put kids in them. You put like a car seat on that cargo part.
Um,
I have a cargo bike and the three of them go in the back. But we kicked the oldest off and, he's got a bike himself. But,
You're on.
to go to, yeah, well, it's time, once you reach 70 pounds, it's, you're on your own. So it's, going to grocery store, going to, soccer games and, if we're late to school, that kind of thing.
So Drive Electric Vermont does all the data, even though.
Drive Electric Vermont hosts the data.
For all the programs, even though
So
they're different bikes.
VEIC is a subcontractor of Center for Sustainable Energy, and they're helping with the outreach to community-based organizations and just getting the word out about it. So this is a part of how they make the program known. So it's one
Yeah.
place that everybody can come to
Right, no,
for all the
good.
different incentive programs.
Rad Power Bike seems to be dominating the.
So I think you're on year one incentives.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So that's why the difference is in the average
average.
voucher issued. At that point, it was $250 for a single bike and
Right.
for a moderate income and $400 for.
Oh, and then, so that's why Rad Bikes doesn't show up in year two, because we switched to the local.
That's right. Yep. So, and it is a reason why the pace of funding is slower.
Right.
It's narrowing it to households with lower incomes. It's narrowing the places where you can purchase the bikes, and it's narrowing the eligible bikes themselves.
You have a list on there of the participating bike shops?
I don't have a list on here, but we can get it to you. Oh, sorry.
It's on the
website. Yeah, definitely on the website.
There. Okay, what else do you got?
And then this is just, again, mapping
So if
out.
we go back to our testimony yesterday, geographic equity, are we finding the bike shops, in other words, are they all clustered in 3 or 4 regions of the state and others? So if you're looking at access to those designated bike shops.
Yeah, we haven't
well distributed?
mapped it out here, but we can
No, I was just wondering,
put
well, we're-
something together.
well,
It's pretty well distributed.
It's,
are they?
yeah,
I was just taking this conversation relative to the one we had
Yeah, with
yesterday.
AOT's
Yeah.
disadvantaged community map.
yes, yeah. And so here are the 2 maps. Year 1 shows a lot of the bikes incentivized in sort of central Vermont. It may or may not correlate to, Lamoille Valley Trail and other, trail networks. And so then with changes, we see a shift sort of away from that. And we just have to dig into what's contributing to that, but there are a couple of different questions that we have there. And then we're also working with Portland State University, which was able to gather some national data on e-bike ownership generally, and has some Vermont-specific data for us to review in the next month or so, which will give us a nice window into those bikes that were incentivized through our program and those bikes that were just purchased generally without support from the state. So, and then lastly, for the incentive program, the fleet incentive program we launched just in this November. We have done it in-house, as I said, as a granting program, which also allows us to have kind of more personal interaction with the applicants. And we talk through, what your EV charging plan might be, what your charging plan is, and then how you're going to account for greenhouse gas emissions reductions. And it's more of a back and forth to really figure out what the right plan is for that particular organization or business.
Who got the electric snowmobile?
I was wondering.
So this is,
But
this is,
it's limited to nonprofits and municipalities, so I
and,
imagine.
well, and businesses,
All businesses.
I mean,
yes,
business,
all
right,
businesses
all
as well.
So
yeah.
ski area could have
Yeah.
a fleet.
So this is, Bolton got a few of these, I think last fall. And it's one of those that is eligible under the program. So we'll see if others, follow their lead or,
Yeah.
and we're running it as a program that we'll learn from. So we'll kind of figure out where we can achieve more greenhouse gas emissions reductions and see how something might evolve.
You have a picture of the D&D vehicle? They didn't get an incentive.
They did not get an incentive, but we again hope that they might serve as an example. And we did hear from, motorcycles are an eligible expense. We did hear from a couple of police departments